All right, let's fully factorize the following expression. It has two terms. We have 2x to the power of 5 minus 128 x to the power of 3. We're going to put it into this format here. It's called the difference of two squares. That's where you have two terms, and they're both square, a squared minus b squared. And when you factor it, it has two sets of brackets, and it's in the form of a plus b, a minus b. Now, the plus could come first or second, and you can rearrange them any way you want, as long as you've got the plus and the minus. Now, in order for that to happen, the first original term must have a minus in it, and that's what we have. That's the good news. The bad news is the 2 and the 128 are not square numbers. The square root of 2 is 1.4. That's something, it's not a whole number, and the square root of 128 is not a whole number. So what do? The first thing we want to do is factorize horizontally by getting the highest common factor. So let's find the highest common factor first between the two numbers in the two terms. We've got a 2 and a 128. So what's the highest common factor? Will have to be 2. Because 2 goes into 2, and 2 divides perfectly into 128. Now let's look at the variables. What goes into x to the power 5 and x to the power 3? It'll have to be x to the power 3. Because x to the power 3 divides into x to the 5, and x to the power 3 divides by itself perfectly, obviously. So let's put the brackets here and see what we come up with. So the question we're going to ask now as we factor this, 2x cubed times what gives me 2x to the power 5? Well, 2 into 2 goes in 1, so that's a 1, I don't have to write anything. X to the power 3 into x to the power 5 is x to the power of 2. How do we know that? Because if I had x to the power of 5, and divided by x to the power of 2, we subtract the powers because the bases, the x's, are the same. So because it's division, the powers we have to subtract. So that's going to be 5 minus 2, so it's x to the power of 3. So that's why we have x to the power 3. So that goes into that many times. So x cubed times x squared is x to the power 5. Now, let's bring down the minus sign. Now, let's work with a number. 2 times what gives me 128? In other words, what's half of 128? 64. X cubed times what gives me x cubed? Just 1, so we don't have to write anything. So let's test that out now. Always good to check and test. 2 times what gives me 2? Well, it's going to be 2 times 1 is 2. X cubed times what gives me x to the power 5? X cubed times x squared is x to the power 5. Add the two powers, x5, that works. Bring down the minus. 2 times what gives me 128? Well, 2 times 64 equals 128. And the x cubed just goes there. So yes, that's fully factored. Now all we have to do is recognize that both these terms are indeed square. X squared, well, that's square, and 64 is a square number. So now I want to take these guys and write into this format where they've both got a little squared on top of them. This doesn't have a squared on it, so let me just fix that up. So the square root of 64 is 8, and now we can put the squared there. Now it's in that format. Bring down the x squared, so that's x all squared, bring down the minus. Now we've got into the form of a and b. Actually, let me just write that down, a and b, a and b. So now all we have to do is put it into two sets of brackets. So we just write these two guys, x and 8, twice. One's got a plus between it, one's got a minus between it. So let me go ahead and do that. So we've got x and 8, x and 8. Now one's a plus, one's a minus. Put the brackets, and there you go. It's factored. X plus 8, x minus 8. Just like the a plus b, a minus b. We're not finished yet. We want to fully factorize it. We want to take the 2x cubed, drag and drop it to the front, then it'll be fully factorized. So let me just take it, drop it down here. So it's 2x to the power of 3. And there you go.